Hey everybody, how's it going? Just chilling out, on for just a short time tonight before I hit the sack. Good to see everybody. Happy Resurrection Day for those that celebrate that. This is too funny. I go live and I've gotten like 5 or 6 texts already, just like in like 2 minutes. Oh. All right, we're back. Last night was a trip. Hey, greetings from the Ukraine. Austin in the house. That's great. Lucas is here from Brazil. Amrit, Murray Craig, Patton, Jax, Wide World West. All right, hold on a second. You know who's texting me right now is Texas Dom for some reason. Terry is with her family and won't be able to make it tonight. Now that was a trip last night, wasn't it? I did not expect that at all. Did not expect that. That was a yeah. You learn something new about people when you go live with them, right? That was something. Yeah, Lucas, the haircut. Yeah, it's you saw the video. It's you know, every time I give myself a haircut or a new beard trim, I took 2 inches off the beard. I don't know if you remember last night. You couldn't even see my neck last night. It was down to about here. So I just kind of went a little bit tighter and, it's not bad. But, the difference between a good haircut and a bad haircut, 2 weeks. If you got an anger problem, walk away. Walk away. Yeah. Yeah. If you don't use 2 chopsticks, you don't get the vortex. I have to figure out a way to share pictures. Sometimes I want to, Tremont, good to see you. Thank you. I'm looking at, let's see, layout, private chat, broadcast info. I vape every now and then. I do have a vape. Alan Hudson, how are you? Virginia here. Excellent. Yeah, man, we got Eastern Europe in the house, Brazil, Virginia, Austin, Texas. That was quite a trip, Mike Bartlett. Thank you for joining us tonight. Do I prefer a pipe or a cigar? Yes. Depends. UK is here. Great. Just a casual log on tonight for talk radio. I call it a talk radio night. So yeah, Lucas, I got that dehydrator as a gift about 3 years ago. I think it cost about $40. It's about $40, and I use it all the time. I mean, I have made so much with that, so much meat with that, and vegetables and fruit. Just amazing, absolutely amazing. Yeah, yeah, Patton. We had some girls talk about the Dom sub life, which was kind of interesting. That was fascinating. You know, but here is an observation that I made. If a woman in a public forum, this is my opinion, your opinions may vary. If a woman wants to talk about being a dominant or a submissive, it's fascinating, right? But if a guy, like if she brings it up, it's fascinating. And you're like, wow, listen to that. Boy, that's a surprise. But if a guy brings it up, he's automatically a perv, you know? And I always thought that was odd. I just, and I think that's just generally a feeling like if we had a whole panel of guys and all of a sudden one guy brought that up, the rest of the guys would be like, what? You know, it's weird. Yeah, it's odd. Ian, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. How about that conversation last night? Holy cow.
Yeah, that was interesting.
You know what's weird is, like, as I was saying, if a woman brings it up, it's cool, and all the guys are like, "Ooh, tell me about it." But if a guy brings it up, he's a pervert, you know? So there's definitely a double standard when it comes to that kind of stuff. You know, like if a guy brings it up with women, he runs the risk of being called, you know, perverted or weird. But if a woman brings it up, it just seems like there's a double standard. Now, the fact that we had a mixed crowd, I thought that was okay, that it was a mixed crowd. And I didn't expect the topic to surface like that. And I typically attract my audience doesn't typically talk about stuff like that, but I just thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was quite a bit of a change up from what I'm used to seeing you talk about on your videos and stuff. So
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Where is everybody?
I'm posting links, and jump on if you'd like to. People, if you want to, feel free to jump on, even if you come on for a few minutes. And when you come on, you know, say hello and whatever, and then a lot of times people will come on, then they have to go, and like, don't feel bad if you have to go, folks. Like if you want to just come on for 10, 15 minutes or something just to say hi or whatever, be part of the conversation, that's cool. And you know, I don't expect everyone to stay on for the full broadcast. Like I said, this is like talk radio. You can kind of pop in, talk about what you want, and then go off on your own way. Because tomorrow's a work day for most people and a school day. Definitely. I was talking with Agnieszka today, and in Poland, and they have Easter Monday. So tomorrow is a holiday. Nobody works in Poland tomorrow. And I thought that was fascinating. And I'm thinking, gosh, why don't we do that? Yeah.
I may have to pop off for a minute, so.
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. I always like it when people pop in. I don't care, even if it's just for a few minutes. That's fine. I just thought I'd fire up a pipe. Pam, why don't you come on? Oh, there's Easter Monday in England too. Okay, I didn't know that. It's pretty wild. I had no idea. No clue.
Oh,
John Hoover is in the house.
Hola, George. Hola.
What did you think of last night's discussion and where that went?
It was definitely an eye-opener and very unexpected and interesting. Oh my gosh. And informative. I mean, it was discussed in a casual, friendly manner. No one's making, it was good. It was a good discussion, actually.
It wasn't like a dirty talk. You know what I mean? Like
no.
It didn't. Yeah.
It wasn't like out of Pulp Fiction or something.
Like that same time. Like I think there are other YouTubers where that kind of discussion can go right down the drain pretty quick. But I think it was handled. I think we were shocked because we didn't expect that to come out of anyone.
And it was kind of like she came out first, and then the other one said, "Well, and by the way," and I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Exactly.
And, I'm sitting here going, "Okay, this could get really interesting," but it was handled well. We stayed out of like you said, we stayed out of the realm of getting into X-rated, and it was handled like adults, like if you were just sitting around a table talking and
well, it was a mature mature adults talking about mature topic, talking about a mature topic. That's the key. If you're mature about it, then it shouldn't be any
it's
issues.
still, it's still socially taboo a bit, and yet it wasn't handled like,
right.
And a lot of.
What I think is fascinating, John, is that, like you said the right phrase, X-rated. We talked about sex and certain people's expression of sexuality without being shaming or X-rated.
Right, or judgmental.
I mean, I had to get over the shock. Say that again?
Or judgmental, saying,
Judgmental,
The only thing that really took me back was she goes, "Well, I have butchery experience." And I'm like, "Oh."
Wait, didn't that
came up in the castration comment? Yeah.
Yeah, and then she said, "Yeah, I've had." Right. So how do if you're like a talk radio host and someone says, yes, I've had men that have asked me to castrate them. And like, I was waiting for her to crack a smile and say, only kidding. But she was like dead serious.
Dead serious, yeah.
And I'm like, oh, tell me more.
Oh, it was crazy. But it was good. I mean, we covered a wide range.
Yeah.
We were all over the place. It was pretty interesting.
All over the place. You're right.
But I saw something today that was, and I want to recommend everyone go out and find it and look at it. It was in Egypt, and it was moving of the royal mummies to the new museum and the Golden Parade. You want to talk about a show. Oh, beautiful, big production, lavish production. The new museum and is absolutely beautiful. They had military escort and all this escort and music and gold vehicles carrying this, the mummies. And it was, you can go to Ruptly, RUPTLY on YouTube and find it there in a nice format. And there's one that's like several hours long, and there's another one that's 8 minutes long, whatever. You can kind of pick and choose what you want to see about it. And it was a big deal. Yeah. I mean, this was something that was really cool, really interesting to see.
But it could very easily be the topic for like a horror movie. Like, I'm a fan of like all the mummy movies,
and all the sarcophagus tops open up, like as they're going down the road. Egyptian presidents don't do well sitting in the gallery in big parades.
No, they don't.
There's a little bit of history there.
Right.
That could have been.
I have right near me is a Coptic church, and very devout people, and I would say the Coptic church is the one near me is about 95% Egyptian Christians, and then some kind of like Orthodoxish kind of people, but it was pretty interesting. Well, hey, I want to say hi to Ethan. How are you, sir?
Hey, George. How are you going? How are you guys doing today?
We're doing good.
Good Easter.
Popped on. Happy Easter. Yeah. Where do you live, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm originally from Michigan, but I'm down in Mexico right now. Been working all day, actually. Yeah.
What do you do? What kind of work?
Yeah, I work online as a English and German tutor, and I also have a clothing business online. So I stay pretty busy.
Tell me about this clothing business.
Yeah, it's like I try to make unique designs for like young adults mostly. I'm always busy on Instagram, posting, creating advertisements, things like that. So Sundays and Saturdays are my days for tutoring now. It's when it's really busy.
Give your business a little shout out. Go ahead.
Yeah, Breeze Apparel. Yeah, I got a sweatshirt right here. All my t-shirts are a little bit dirty now, but I'll show you. I can only hop on for a few minutes today. I got a reservation in a couple minutes, but this is one of my shirts. Little hoodie. Don't need it now in Mexico now. Not getting much use.
Yeah.
A little bit warm here. But yeah.
That's
Breeze
awesome.
Apparel is about me.
Awesome. Tell me about the tutoring business.
Yeah, it's mostly freelance. I kind of build up a client base over a little while. It's been a couple years since I've been working on it. So it works like just a video chat like this. People are able to give me a call when they're able or make a reservation. And most of them just want to have a conversation. But once in a while I do teach grammar and vocabulary and stuff like that. But it's pretty easy work, really just talking and getting to know people. So like this whole talk radio thing is my daily life almost, but it's more of a one-to-one conversation.
So how long is a typical tutoring session?
About 30 to 60 minutes. Yeah, usually at least 30. Yeah.
And what is the age range of your students?
Yeah, I think the youngest I've ever had was about like 7 or something, but most of them are 20s and 30s, kind of young professionals, university students. So it's a good time.
You know,
what's that?
I have a story for you. I remember growing up in a household where everyone spoke Italian. Mm-hmm. And all of the men after dinner on the holidays would go out back and speak. And I remember asking my grandfather once, I said, why don't I speak Italian? His exact words were this, exact words. He says, you will speak English. English is the language of success.
Mm. Yeah, I think I heard you mention that in the show once. I've been following the Daybreak show for a few years now already. So.
Oh wow! Yeah.
Yeah, I probably heard that somewhere along the way, but it kind of rung a few bells just now. Well, that's cool.
English is the language of technology, as well. If you look at technology and how it's handled, a lot of people, it's mostly in English and English text, and
But then a lot of businesses want people that know a lot of languages as well too.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of a counter to that.
I think.
I don't know. Yeah. Go ahead.
I think it's more common in Europe to be able, and overseas, if you will, that people speak multiple languages. The United States is pretty weak in that area. People tend to be monolingual. Unless English is a second language. But I have friends in Romania that speak 4, 5, 6 languages fluently. I mean, that's part of their business and their job, and they can read, write, and speak. And, it's no big deal to them. And it's not like Eastern European languages. I mean, they speak German, French, Indian. They speak some Urdu, that kind of thing. So, because like if you speak over in Eastern Europe, if you speak Russian, you can get by pretty much everywhere. Because like Romanian, Ukrainian would be like French, but spoken in Montreal versus Paris versus Louisiana, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And no, but being able to speak multiple languages, I think, should be a part of everyone's education these days.
Yeah. Most other countries I know of, the people I talk with, most of them grow up learning some other European language. If they come from Europe, or they're in Asia, they learn Chinese many times as a second language.
Yeah.
So U.S. is a little bit behind. You're definitely right on the money with that.
That's right.
Yeah. And we tend to
Lucas.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Lucas.
Hey there. Good evening, everyone.
Lucas from Brazil.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
Can you all hear me?
Yeah. We can hear you.
We can hear you.
Right. Yeah, well, I actually am an English teacher, so I do have some experience on that. Down here in Brazil, kids grow up learning Spanish and English at school, mainly because down here in South America, Brazil is the only country that speaks Portuguese. All of the other ones speak Spanish. And so it's important for us to learn Spanish because of our neighbors. And so when it comes to commerce and everything, it's very important that we all know how to communicate with them. And also English because of its power throughout the world. and I've chosen to work with this mainly because when I was a kid, I started studying English at a private-only English school, because my parents thought that would be important for me, and it ended up being my occupation later, because when I finished my course, the owner of the school invited me to be a teacher there as well, and so I can see the importance of that now with my students, because when it comes to basic education down here in Brazil, at least, our English teaching is very poor. It's awful. I don't think any students get out of school really speaking and understanding English properly. So unless you go to a private school that teaches only English, which is where I learned and where I work, you were probably not going to be a good English speaker, at least a reasonable level, of the language. You will not learn that at school. And so I understand the importance of developing the subject, the English and the Spanish language subjects in schools down here, because our education levels down here in general are not the best. And at least giving the kids the option of learning another language, we give them an opportunity of maybe developing their skills in other fields simply by having the language. So if we're going to fail in other subjects, we could at least give them a deeper understanding of another language so that they can learn what we couldn't teach them at school.
Ethan, what do you think of that?
Yeah, a lot of good points there. I actually used to teach at a language school here in Mexico. Again, I had mostly young adults. Many of my students had pretty big vocabularies, but they weren't really fluent in conversation if I would talk to them outside of class or something. So learning in a classroom, I think you can only get so far, especially if you have other classmates with you, because you have to learn, concepts about the language, but you also have to apply what you learn in real conversation, which is where I come in, I suppose. I'm more of a conversational tutor, although I do teach more detailed things too. But yeah, very good points. I think that might be the reason why, people don't graduate, school, university, whatever, speaking a language fluently, because they don't have enough conversation practice. So
what's really interesting, I've seen some documentaries on the French Foreign Legion, and here, imagine they have people coming from like 32 different countries, multiple languages, and they all have to be able to communicate, so they teach them French. And the way they teach them French, besides classroom, is through singing, but it's also an immersion type process. Of course, they're in boot camp and everything like this. And so by the time they get out of boot camp, they have to be able to understand the 167 basic military commands in French at minimum, and to get out, or they get scrubbed. And the way they teach it, proven formula, a little bit, I don't think it'd fly in a school. But the singing is a very interesting way that they do that. And they learn all the traditional Legion songs and sing them in French. And, it's very interesting. You gentlemen who teach languages, look up on the French Foreign Legion documentaries, and you can see how they do that. It's very interesting. And they had a. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe.
What's interesting was in college I learned Greek, but not modern Greek. It was more biblical and ancient Greek. And the first time I took it, I didn't get it. It just didn't connect with me. And I got very discouraged because it was not connecting. And then I remember I went to a different, and this was in graduate school. And then I went to a different school about a year and a half later. And I, not being a quitter, I thought, okay, I'm going to try this again. I did, and I ended up getting an A in the course. Now, did I change in that year and a half? No, not at all. It had everything to do with the teacher. The second graduate school that I went to, that teacher was so good with drilling me and vocabulary and putting me on the spot in front of the class, like putting the pressure on. And knowing that I was going to be in the hot seat day after day in this class made me commit a little bit more to my reading, my vocabulary. And like I said, I ended up getting an A in the course and having a love for the ancient Greek. But man, I'll tell you what, everything, for me, everything had to do with the teacher. Oh, here was the other thing. It was the same textbook, same exact textbook, same vocabulary cards. You put them on a metal ring and just flip through them, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cards. But it was the teacher that made all the difference. Lucas and Ethan, comment on your teaching style and what makes your teaching unique. Why do your students learn?
Well, what I think that contributes a lot for their learning is the fact that I try to use only English all the time. Because in most Brazilian schools, like public schools and everything, what you're going to see is English teachers translating everything to Portuguese, which is going to make the kids think in Portuguese when they want to say something in English, then translate to English and then speak, which is not exactly how a conversation goes, you know, because you have to think in the language you're speaking in order to have the conversation flow. So when you go to a public school, you're going to see endless hours of English teachers teaching verb to be. So kids will learn, I don't know, 10 different songs on how to memorize I am, you are, he is, and all of that. And I understand that's basic, but that's far from enough, you know? So they get too much of the basic stuff, and that doesn't get developed enough for them to learn more. So what I try to do is I speak only English in class. I try to bring to my students examples from their day-to-day life, you know, whatever they do at home and everything. So I try to bring that to classroom, and I make them talk to each other. And that way, I think maybe I don't focus enough on grammar, you know, like going to the board and making them write things all the time, because then I make everything more fluid. And so I try to make the classes interesting. I try to bring cartoons and TV shows that they watch right now. Of course, because I have mainly kids, I can no longer bring examples from the things that I did as a kid, even though I'm, 15 or 10 years older than them, which is not a lot. Still, I have to bring newer things, and so I have to learn as well if I want them to learn. And I try to be updated on whatever kids are into right now, and by that I make them have fun. You know, having fun is what they want, because if they feel obligated to be there by their parents or by me or whoever, they're not going to properly dedicate themselves to that. So I just try to make them have fun, and by that I think I'm making way more progress than I would just following the textbook as it is.
I mean, the whole goal is to be able to communicate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you can get real rigid with the grammar and structure and deconstructing sentences and all this kind of fun stuff. You know, and unless you're really into it, you just lost about 3/4 of the class, depending on the age group, where they want to be able to say, hey, how's it going? Where can I get a burger? How do I order this? You know, like you say, having conversational situations that would come up. I had friends, agents down on the border who used to watch the Spanish soap operas, Mexican soap operas on Telemundo and Univision. And that's how they were learning how to speak. They'd have the English subtitles rolling at the bottom, scrolling, and they would be listening and reading and learning how to say things and everything because it was conversational. And so that was one way they were teaching themselves down there, you know. And
Interesting. Yeah.
For the Border Patrol agents, they all go through the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia. And they have a 2-week total immersion. They go in and they can only speak Spanish, only speak Mexican. That's all they can do. They can't talk any English. And it's a total immersion for 2 weeks. So, and it's not to become absolutely fluent, it's to be able to handle situations that come up in their work down on the border. And so all the Border Patrol agents go through that, unless they're a native Spanish speaker and opt out, can test out of it. But otherwise, everyone's going through it for Border Patrol. It
yeah,
kind of interesting stuff, And young guys would love FLETC. It's like boot camp with summer camp with 9mm. It is totally awesome to go to. And all the federal agents train there except for DEA and FBI. And they train at Quantico. But you learn they have a big skid pan where you learn all the high-speed pursuit and drills and largest indoor shooting range in the Americas and mock border patrol stations. And it's just a hoot to go there. And once you're on the campus, they tell you if you're challenged or you can accidentally walk into a scenario that they're running through the campus. And you have to put your hands up and say, I'm not in role. So you don't get tossed to the ground, cuffed, hauled off somewhere and everything. It's a lot of fun. I spent a couple of weeks there getting training and everything. So I just throw that in. I know but they teach language there, and I was real surprised, but that's part of it.
Yeah, about communicating being the main goal. Well, it took me 6 years to learn everything that the course could teach me. Of course, they won't teach you everything because you have to try by yourself by speaking and listening and everything. But what they could teach me, they would do so in 6 years. And so I studied there for 6 years. And then I had to study an extra semester for the teaching course and everything. And then when I finished everything and I started teaching, finally, my dad said to me, hey, I want to learn that as well, but I don't want to be there for 6 years like you did. So why don't you just teach me some basic sentences and questions and everything that if I ever visit the United States, they will ask me and that I should ask. And so I could know that without having to study for 6 years like you did. And I said, well, Dad, sorry, but if I teach you like, how are you? Just that basic line, people are going to respond and a conversation is going to begin. How can you travel abroad just knowing the basic, very basic stuff like the memorized sentences? How are you? What's your name? How old are you? Things like that we teach kids. How can I teach you that? Because then when you're going to have a conversation, people are going to respond to what you're going to say. So yeah, communicating is the main goal, and you have to know exactly how to get there. Even if your grammar is not 100% correct, you need to know how to make yourself understandable, and to understand what other people are saying as well.
So George, why were you taking the sort of ancient Greek, and in I guess Latin as well too, right?
Latin and Hebrew, yeah. Because my first years in graduate school were actually in seminary.
Ah,
yeah, and that's all. You don't have a choice; you have to take it. It's and it was very discouraging for me initially because I went to a school that had super high standards, and I would say it was probably the hardest graduate school in the country. I challenge anyone. I mean, other than, I'm trying to think, maybe a medical school or the higher Ivy League schools. Westminster Theological Seminary was the absolute, and I've gone to a lot of colleges, absolute most challenging school I ever went to. The classes on the average had 13 textbooks per class. 13. How do you even begin to start that reading list?
I mean, knowing most universities, you probably don't use most of them. You buy the book for $500, and the first day they tell you not to use it.
Yeah,
so
that is true.
Because the professor wrote it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Professor wrote it, so it's like, hey, kids, you need this textbook.
Well, I will tell you, at Westminster, that's a good point, because many of the textbooks were written by existing professors and past professors who were long dead. I mean, they're just incredible scholars. But it was so intimidating. It was a very, very, and I was not an academic. I'm a practical person. I'm not an academic person. So it was very challenging for me. So then when I went to, when I transferred from there to a university, I did very well. And then when I graduated from the university with my master's, I went back to a seminary, but not Westminster Seminary. And that was the one where the teachers were more, I don't want to say more understanding, but I just think they had a more gentle teaching style. Yeah.
There was that movie, I think I mentioned to you, Tolkien.
Yeah.
About the early
I
life
loved
of
it.
J.R. Tolkien, and about his experience at Oxford, I believe it was, Oxford University. And
that was one of my favorites.
That is a great movie to see, because the Oxford experience, this is like early 1900s, before World War I. And so he's there. He's not doing so great. He's kind of in the wrong place, and he wants to go over and do a different form of language, and how he convinces a professor to let him in to his school, his class, was by showing him the work he had done, the stories he had written, the languages he had created.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, he and his the woman that he married, they created their own language, and they wrote love letters back and forth in this made up language. That whole, I mean, if you've read Lord of the Rings and you know the whole background of that stuff, that came from a massive imagination. And actually, in that year, 2019, when that movie came out, it was a toss-up for me. 2019, my two favorite movies in 2019 were Tolkien and Rocket Man, which was the movie about Elton John.
Right.
That I thought they were both just, I thought, phenomenal films. But for me, Tolkien got it. And I love how any movie that's shot on the Oxford campus, I'm an instant fan of it. It brought me right back to Chariots of Fire, if you remember seeing that. That was magnificent.
That was a long time. God, that movie must be 40 years old now.
I would say 45, almost 45. Yeah. Yeah.
But it still plays well. I mean, some of these movies.
It's a phenomenal movie. Yeah. Chariots of Fire is one of the best movies ever made. And I just encourage everyone to see it, and you will agree with me. It's one of the best films ever.
Mm-hmm. You know what was poignant about Tolkien was how the war, the loss of, if you will, brain trust. You know, Tolkien kind of banded with several other young, they were kids in public school, private school, and became tight as thieves, and they all go off the war, and 4 of them go off the war, only 2 came back. And I think, you know, and how profound it was. I've read that like World War I set humanity back 100 years. The loss of intellect that was wasted on those battlefields, and the officers had real high casualty rates.
Yeah.
And you know, Tolkien was lucky to get out.
He was. You know, there's a video, a couple videos of Tolkien here on YouTube of actual footage of him, and he's going back to Oxford. He takes you to the home that he grew up in. And Tolkien was obsessed with trees, as you know, just big giant trees and things that could live in trees and the roots and the branches. And he takes you to a tree that inspired him to write about some of the trees in Lord of the Rings and in The Hobbit. Very fascinating. He was, you know, there's this old footage of Tolkien, and he's got his pipe too. And some of the people are like as he's talking, he's like lighting his pipe and he's whipping that pipe around as he's talking. And some of the comments are like, "Whoa, don't get in the way of that pipe." It was kind of funny. But when you hear him talk, and this is not a young Tolkien. This is an older man, retirement age. He actually was like a child in a man's body. It's not like he grew up, you know. When you talk to the old, or when you look at the older Tolkien talking, it's like talking to a 13-year-old fantasizing about a fort out in the woods or something. Fascinating. I would look it up. Just look up the original film footage of Tolkien here on YouTube, and it's so cool. You know the story? He was grading papers, and those of you who are Daybreak Show fans, you know I love C.S. Lewis and Tolkien. It was a hot night. It was a summer course that he was teaching, and the windows were open in the office. It was very hot. He's grading papers, and he stopped writing. He reached over and grabbed a piece of scrap paper. This is a true story. He took a piece of scrap paper. He wrote on it, "In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit." And then he pushed the paper over to the corner of the desk and then finished grading the papers. Imagine if you could have that piece of paper. Like, where is that right now? I mean, that started a fiction movement, a literary movement. And it started with that. Just a simple sentence. You know, and some people say, you know, well, I wouldn't know what to write. I go, just write something. Start. Mm-hmm. Just start.
It's amazing. The great writers, like my favorite's Hemingway. I love Hemingway.
Yeah.
And to be able to, he had a thing, discipline. He wrote like 1,200 words a day.
Yeah.
He'd bang out 1,200 words and every day. And a little bit of interesting, I got a chance to meet his son, Patrick Hemingway.
Nice.
In Tanzania, of all places. He was an instructor at the Mikomazi Game Preserve College there, and went to some lectures by him. And
did you know that he had a standing desk? You know how like standing desks are real popular right now? He had a standing desk, and he wrote with his typewriter on a standing desk.
And I even made a Hemingway pilgrimage to the End of the World Saloon on Bimini.
Oh, really?
To hoist one for Papa. Yeah, that was where he had a room there, and he stayed there, and that's where he wrote Old Man in the Sea. Was on the island of Bimini. Yeah, he was a character. I mean, real character.
Let me ask you this. Do you think he could have written The Old Man and the Sea if he didn't stay there, if he didn't have a writer's retreat there? Do you think the actual environment, did the environment inspire him?
Yeah, absolutely. Because he was a fisherman. He went out on the ocean. He was out there. That's Bimini for the longest time was the sort of preserve of game fishermen. The only people that pulled in there were sport fishermen and, that kind of thing. It wasn't a touristy thing. It's hard to get to. No airport, no nothing. You got to go by boat. And it's 70 miles from Grand Bahama Island from Freeport. And with a tricky harbor. I went over with a friend of mine on a sailboat, and we sail at night. You keep the lighthouse out of Freeport over your shoulder, steer on in, and then wait for daybreak to come in through the opening into the port. Because it's tricky because of the coral and everything. You got to kind of thread your way through. And
it's funny that you say lighthouse, because I have this fantasy of course, after watching like The Lighthouse and these other movies.
That was dark.
It was. But for some reason, I think that doing a writer's retreat at a lighthouse for a month, I could knock out a book in a month. For some reason, I don't know maybe I'm romanticizing it too much, but I just think being at a lighthouse with no one around, no way in, no way out, would be.
One of my
internet would help as well, I think.
Yeah, that would be crazy.
Yeah, nothing else to do.
Just sit up in the top, look out at the ocean. Probably got a 55-gallon drum of Windex up there, polish everything up. And one of my diving friends, Brian, who bought a Scottish lighthouse made out of granite blocks, had it disassembled and shipped to Maine where he lived and reassembled.
Wow.
And he lived in his lighthouse. Now that's crazy.
It's interesting.
That's wild.
Like when I was younger, I just never thought that I could go away for months at a time. You ever see like these challenges? You see them on Instagram. Would you go and live here for 90 days with no internet, no TV, and I'm always like the first to think, I'll go. Because I like the idea of just disappearing.
Hey, get a summer job up in Alaska this summer, looking for people. Fish processing.
Oh yeah, right.
I did that this past year, actually. It's a lot of work.
Oh wow.
Like we had about 30 days consecutively where we worked 16 hours a day. So you don't really have time for anything but working and sleeping. A little bit of eating, but middle of nowhere in Alaska. It's actually really refreshing once you feel like you're almost corrupted once you get back to the city. I stopped in Anchorage for a few days afterwards, and It was a good time, but if you get
Didn't
that
you
chance,
find it weird when you got back? I mean, like that first day, that first night, you're back, and it's noise and cars, and you got to remember to look both ways before you cross the street and everything. You know, you haven't seen anything.
I felt like I was coming out of Man vs. Wild almost, back to civilization, but good experience overall. Very valuable.
How big was the group?
I think everyone has to do that.
How big was
everyone
the group
has to get away
fish processing
as well? Yeah, it helps. It could help anyone, I think. I think you're right, George. Yeah, you meet a lot of like-minded people up there working. I mean, working 16 hours a day. You know, it weeds out the people who are a little bit, I guess, lazy really quickly. Bad attitude. You know, they usually quit pretty early. So the people who are left are like really cool. You know. Met some good friends up there. Still, you know, stay in touch with them now once in a while. A great time.
Daniel.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How are you?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Good. What are you doing? What's going on with you?
Just hanging in Texas with the in-laws house for Easter.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
How many people were there at the fish process? Just curious. Large of a group are we talking?
It was like a small town. We had a lot of people. I don't know the numbers. Maybe I think they had a few hundred to start, and then we finished with about 100, I believe.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure on that though. Quite a few.
Cool.
If you're looking for more information, send me a private chat. I can hook you up if anyone's interested.
Oh, I'll skip that. I worked offshore in the oil business on the rigs and the boats as a diver, and used to do saturation diving. And you lived in basically a beer can with 3 other guys for 30 days. Pressurized beer can. And man, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, everyone has to get along. You're living knee to knee, forehead to forehead. There's not a lot of space in these things. There's no privacy. And you're under pressure. You sound like Donald Duck, you know, because the helium distorts your voice. And the work's hard. And, you know, when you get back to surface and they pop that door and you get that first breath of fresh air because you've been breathing bottled air for a month, you know, I used to like to walk out on deck and just just stand out there and breathe, you know. And it was a tough. It takes a special kind of crazy to do that kind of work, I think.
For sure.
I think there was a song back in the 70s. I remember a line of a song that says, "Just let me breathe the air." Do you remember that song? That just came to me as soon as you said that. John, does that sound familiar? Just let me breathe the air. Does that sound familiar?
No, let me do a little something. Go ahead, guys. Keep talking. I'll be a moment here.
I'm putting the pieces of this together. I think it was Little River Band.
Who sang it? Okay.
Little River Band.
All right.
And there's a song called "Cool Change." That phenomenal song, and it's about just being out on the open water. Incredible song, and you kind of get the feeling of like being like a sailor, not as in the Navy, but just being out on your sailboat alone. And there's one line where he says, "The albatross and the whales, they are my brothers." And for some reason, that always inspired me. I related to that because there's times where I will sit out on my back deck and I will literally do, animals will come up and they hang with me. And I started talking to birds. And okay, we need to get that off. There we go. All right. So we just had a vagina show up. It looked like. Did you see that? Somebody came on. Somebody. It's a good thing you did. YouTube, isn't that great? Mm-hmm. Isn't that something?
There's always got to be somebody.
Yeah.
Apparently, some of one
Sunday,
of the
nothing else to do, I guess.
Participants in yesterday's show, his fans or something, really kind of locked on to me in the comments section. It was kind of funny.
Well, YouTube is pretty much a parade of perverts, if you think about it. I mean, if there's a paid platform, then, you know, if there's a paid platform, then people respect it more. But if it's free, then you attract all the garbage. And half of that garbage is manosphere garbage. And that's why I don't even use the word anymore, and I call it the YouTube men's community, because I just don't want the parade of perverts, and I don't want to. I'm not interested.
Well, I mean,
in that.
It wasn't anything pervy. It was just saying.
Well, I'm talking about the vagina.
Oh,
I'm just talking about the vagina that just showed up. I just brought somebody on board, and I'm like, "What the heck is that?" I'm like, tilting my head. I'm like, "Oh my God, that's a vagina." So.
Are you sure it wasn't a Arby's roast beef sandwich?
Or Taco Bell? No, it wasn't.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's what I think of when I see Arby's commercials. I have to be honest.
I know, really. I can't eat at Arby's. Everyone, that image just got ruined for me. You know.
Yeah, I got curly fries. Besides that, not much else there for me.
No.
So so when you're with your wife, do you get hungry for Arby's? Like the opposite?
Are you talking to me?
Anyone? I don't know. Anyone?
No. I don't have a wife, so I can't answer that.
I've never personally put two and two together like that.
Yeah.
Bless you, my son.
I'm happy. Good the way
I could really go downhill with some jokes right now, but I think, it's Sunday, it's Easter. I'll just let it just flow by the radar, just
right.
Walk away.
Yeah, we got to give it a break on Sundays, at least on Sundays.
Easter Sunday, yes,
Yeah, yeah. We don't go below the belly button on Sundays.
I was trying to be a good boy, bringing up the Egyptian mummy transfer, and
right,
trying to be a good boy.
It worked.
Did have an interesting thing you would be interested in, George. I got to sit outside and listen to part of a Eastern Orthodox ceremony at a monastery. It was virtually done. It was in Romania, and it was beautiful. You could hear all the chanting and everything coming out, the bells.
Yeah.
It's on monastery grounds. It's an old monastery, and the inside is absolutely beautiful. And they have benches, and people will, if it's filled up in the monastery, people sit outside. And there are the different saints. There's pictures and stuff, and people go put candles and pray before the different saints and everything. It's very interesting.
Right.
You would find it very interesting, very peaceful setting.
That's great. I posted something on my Facebook page called the George Bruno Experience, and it was a kind of a lecture on dating, and it's fast. I think it's the last thing that I posted on Facebook, and it's by Father Josiah Trenum, and it makes a lot of sense. And I was listening to it, and I'm thinking, man, this guy teaches the same way that I do, and believe me, it's a new way of teaching for me.
Now he's Eastern, or he's Orthodox, right?
Yeah. We are getting severely trolled tonight. So.
Yeah, I was wondering about the church thing too. Did anybody else here go to church this morning? Well, typically it's Christmas and Easter people go, but is anybody a member of a church? Anybody celebrate Easter today by going? Just curious what's out there.
I didn't.
Yeah. I went to church with my in-laws, but not my normal church. No, since I've been trying to find a new one in Colorado Springs.
All right.
Testing the waters. One of my least favorite things to do is church shop.
I don't know.
I hate that.
A lot of options. The South, especially.
Mm.
What do you guys look for if you're looking for a new place?
If I may just... sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Lucas. Go ahead.
Okay. If I may just share what happened to me this Easter, because last year on Easter we had just discovered COVID and everything, and so everybody was scared as hell, and church was closed, and I didn't really see my family. It was not my choice though. Everyone else decided not to get together, and that was well, we kind of broke up with tradition last year, because the tradition on Easter is everybody goes to church. Actually, my religion, we go to church on Saturday, not on Sunday. And so we would all go together on Saturday to church, and then on Sunday we would spend all day together and celebrate as a family. But last year we didn't have that. Church was closed, and so nothing on Saturday. And then everybody decided not to get together on Sunday. So I just spent Easter last year with my grandparents because I live with them, and I didn't see any of my uncles and aunts and cousins and everybody. And then today we decided to go back to our roots and just get back together as a normal Easter would be. And we went to church yesterday, and it was wonderful. And there was this quartet singing at church. In my church, we have these musical groups. I don't know if that happens in every church, but this group was singing "Because He Lives," which is a hymn by Bill Gaither. I don't know if you guys know that song, but down here in Brazil, it's very popular. The translation of the song is very popular, and I was listening to that, and I was just thinking, what a hypocrite I was last year for letting everything that happened really happen, in my family and everything. Because listening to the words in that song, I believe the English version says, "Because He lives, I can face tomorrow," and everything. And so just thinking about that, being at church yesterday and remembering the awful Easter that I had last year and that my family had, we did not trust at all that we would get through this safe, with the blessings of our Lord. And I just felt grateful, and I felt sorry, and honestly I felt a little ashamed that last year I wasn't faithful enough to trust that we could do everything we normally do. But I was so scared, and everyone was, in my family at least. We were so scared that bad things would happen, but because He lives, we can face tomorrow, And just being at church yesterday was I don't know, maybe in the past years, I didn't feel so good at church like I did yesterday, and I just felt I should share this.
No,
Glad you did. Thanks.
It's understandable.
Yeah.
I mean, when the pandemic first broke, seeing the images coming out of China of the people falling out in the street and the hospitals all jammed up and people being welded into their apartments and cities quarantined, it was kind of scary. I mean, those visual images were, pretty rough, pretty scary looking. And we didn't understand it like we do now. And, and so it's understandable. And faith works in different ways. Even though you might not be in a church, having that faith, that resilience and strength to go forward and to protect yourself and protect your family, that's faith. That's faith.
I just want to interject something here. Amrit says, apologies, not sure what I said. I'm a fan of the channel. I just went on a blocking frenzy with the parade of perverts that were just showing up in the chat. So if I gave you a 5-minute timeout that was by accident, it certainly wasn't from something you said. I'm a free speech fan, but I'm also a civilized speech fan as well. So Amrit, my apologies. You don't have to apologize. I think I might have gave you a little timeout as I was blocking and timing out about 10 different people. So, yeah.
Well, that's the way forward with our country, the world, really. I just see so much fear nowadays. People are willing to give up a lot of freedoms for that. I just don't know. I'm not always so positive about the direction our country / the world is going in general.
We got people so weak.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I see a lot of, there's people are entitled to their opinions based on politics, economic policies. But I see a lot of people my age, I'm 25 right now, who think very extreme on the left side of things, politically and economically. And I think it comes from a good place. Like you hear all the time that conservatives are the ones who are, they don't care about other people, the environment, they're racist. So they hear that and they think, well, I'm not going to join that party. I'm going to go to the left side where they seem to care about people. But I just don't know if people always do their due diligence in thinking or in deciding what they want to believe in that regard. So combined with this COVID thing, we've seen how easy it is to propagate fear. And when people are scared and divided, that's the time when a lot of power is seized. I mean, look at by governments, it could be by business, but you just look at history. When the general population, the majority of people is weak, divided, afraid, that's the time when things go downhill. And we have to learn those lessons again, how valuable freedom is and how valuable, our United States Constitution is, how lucky we have been.
Ethan,
I hope we preserve that.
You see what Athena says there? I just posted that on the screen.
No, let me check to our own homes while their groups plotted and schemes. Exactly. Well, you posted something, George, on YouTube, I believe, and on your Instagram. I follow you there too, about the 10 steps of genocide. There's 2 genocide stages or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The homes have become, the gulags, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is going to sound crazy, but bear with me for just a moment. Are you all familiar with the concept of soft war? Okay.
I'm guessing it's something with propaganda, war of words and
Yes.
opinions.
Yes. Propaganda, electronic manipulation through the media and everything. Chinese are brilliant at it. Okay. America, we're a hard war country. Okay. We're going to send our aircraft carriers and our bombers and our special forces units and, have at it. That kind of warfare is going to become secondary to soft warfare, propaganda, false lies, fake news, this kind of thing. And I think we have seen manipulation of this through our media, through the mainstream media. And I am, and George, back me up on this. We're the elder, been around a bit, the old mossbacks here. I've never seen politicians, elected officials, get away with the comments they have made. I mean, I have heard Congress people turn around and say, maybe the Trump supporters need to go to re-education camps. Hello? That's an elected official?
Yeah.
In Congress?
Isn't that something?
Who said that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I heard anyone say that before who is an elected official. Do you remember the name?
I can look it up and find it. It'll take me a while, but it's one of the far left. It wasn't a member of the, what is it? They call it the PAC or something. Nancy Pelosi.
Like AOC.
Yeah. It wasn't one of those.
Not her.
It was a long-standing member who's pretty far left. And you see that, and you see the vertical segregation that's being put into place and allowed to happen. Take COVID, maskers versus no maskers, vaccine people versus unvaccinated people, and back and forth. And it's not a question. And when you see people who don't wear a mask in a store attacked physically, those people aren't scared of the if you're so scared of the vaccine, what are you doing getting into Greco-Roman wrestling with somebody on the floor of a grocery store?
Yeah.
Okay? If you're that scared of it, what's going on here? And you see that the BLM movement, Antifa, look at what's happened to Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis is sitting on a powder keg right now. We can't let this continue. We can't let our cities burn with impunity.
Well, here's something, John. Athena says this: as an older woman of color who is American, I have angry, illogical, unfathered, patriarchy-hating Black people speaking for me. What jumped out at me, Athena, with that word was, you said unfathered. I work with a Black woman at the forensic facility. She might even be watching this. She became a fan of this channel. Hi, Pam, if you're watching. And after her watching this channel for a period of time, she said to me, literally the most serious thing I've ever heard in my life. She says, George, we need you to father this world. And when she said, we need you, she says, like, men, we need men to father this world. And that blew me away. I never heard it put that way. So Athena, I totally hear you when you say unfathered. That's very, very deep.
We have created a welfare system that does not promote family, that does not promote a father's being in the house. I mean, having worked in Medicaid and been around it and been through the projects, that system, that industry, if you think of all the tens of thousands of people who are employed to service that, it does not support a nuclear family. It tears it apart. It discourages it. It penalizes it. Yet it promotes women having children out of wedlock, because the more children they have, the more benefits and money they get.
Right.
And that has to change. We have to find a way to change that system.
It's a similar principle to something you talked about recently, George, about helping a friend, just on a bigger scale. That was micro, and now we're talking macro.
Macro, yeah. Yeah, and I think, what's interesting, I think that is the, we think our politicians are leaders. What if a father did to his children what politicians are doing to us, that father would be in jail for child abuse.
Mm-hmm. What's the principal job of a politician?
I know you already know the answer.
To get reelected.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right. That's right.
To get reelected.
Right.
That's their job. They all come out and, come pet my pet unicorns, and we're going to have this, and we're going to do all the people laid off the Keystone Pipeline. They can learn the code and put solar panels on and have great new jobs. We're lions being led by donkeys.
Lions being led by donkeys.
A great
interesting
phrase that came out of World War I, that the commanders, the generals commanding those troops, lions led by donkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone see the movie 1918 from last year?
17, right?
Yeah, 1917.
I've seen it, yeah.
1917.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
That was a great movie.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. We got bombarded with World War II movies for the past 50 years. It's nice to see a World War I movie.
There's some really good ones out there.
Mm-hmm.
Some really good ones out there. And,
what happens with World War II movies? They end up getting hijacked by a single narrative, which I get real tired of, just like the same narrative over and over again. But yeah, it's nice to see those. What do they call those? Like flatter helmets? Those from World War I. I like those uniforms better.
The doughboy.
Yeah.
The Soup Bowl helmet. Yeah.
Actually, it's funny because I learned ASL while I was in high school, and the old sign to say German was in reference to their pointy hat in World War I and prior.
Oh wow!
The pickle helm.
Mm-hmm. I just thought that was hilarious.
And
Changed
those
it
helmets,
since then, and I don't know what it is now.
those helmets were leather.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't metal. Metal helmets weren't, and metal helmets came after like 1916, sort of toward the end of 1917. In that era, metal helmets started becoming regular issue, you know, because of the shrapnel and the artillery. You know, it was interesting. We had talked once, George, about beards, and I mentioned like during the 1800s and early 1900s, men really rocked their beards and mustaches.
Yeah, they did.
And you had mentioned that shaving wasn't in vogue. You know, men didn't shave. And I did a little research, and there's a little thread about shaving became more popular, more common with the use of gas on the World War I battlefields, because men had to shave and trim everything up so their gas mask would fit and not
would
leak.
seal. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In fact,
interesting.
Hitler and his toothbrush, he used to have a big, and if you look at early pictures of him in World War I, he had a big handlebar mustache. And it is rumored that he went to what they called, a toothbrush mustache. His little was because he got gas. His mustache was coming through the seal and let in a certain amount of gas, and he got a little bit of gas. So he cut and trimmed his mustache off and made the toothbrush mustache.
You know, it's interesting. When I see that mustache, I just instantly think of him. And like, imagine like that was a style. Can you imagine just like you want to grow a certain mustache, but it's associated with, with an evil person? I think that's interesting.
Well, kind of took Adolf off the name list, boys' name list too. For
yeah, right.
It's the few that ruin it for the many.
But
yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, that would be like naming your child Genghis.
That would actually be more acceptable, I think, than naming your kid Adolf.
Really?
Well,
a little bit further removed in history.
Yeah.
Not
as fresh in the mind anymore.
What other single names would you not name your son? You won't name him Adolf. You won't name him Genghis. How about? I'm trying to think of like who else?
Stalin. I would have Stalin.
Stalin, yeah, that kind of little Pol Pot, kind of.
Don't name your child Pol Pot. No.
And
like we're all going back in history right now. Like I'm trying to think of some name, like Alexander. That's a cool name, right?
Yeah,
right.
Think about Alexander the Great.
Yeah, but
that's a strong name.
And he.
Or how about Judas?
Behind him.
There you go.
Yeah, that one kind of went by the wayside. Yeah.
Yeah, that was,
or Cain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, now we're getting biblical now. Let me think who else, That's funny.
There's a few kings.
Herod.
I can't remember all of their names. Yes.
Yeah, you'd never, yeah.
Oh, man.
A lot of biblical names I would never name a kid if I had one. Too hard to pronounce.
Hezekiah?
Jehoshaphat. Hezekiah, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
probably
there were, when you look, yeah, I was going to say, when you look at Pennsylvania Dutch, there's a lot of Ezekiel's, Hezekiah's, Josiah's, like that kind of stuff. Amos.
Obadiah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Obadiah. I mean, is that a guy's name?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a prophet, I believe. Right?
Oh, okay.
Old Testament?
Sorry. My biblical scholarship is shining through.
That's like my sports scholarship. Someone asked me the other day. They said, "How do you feel about the Eagles? You know, Philadelphia Eagles." And I just joke around because I don't follow sports. So I said, "I'm really not into basketball." Just kind of making fun of my own dislike for sports, so people know.
I was really upset when they broke up. Yeah, you know.
What's your dislike?
Right.
George, where does your dislike for sports come from? Why do you feel that way?
When I stopped playing them. When I went from being a participant to expected to be a audience member, a spectator. Yeah, that's just like, to me. I think professional sports is the opiate of the masses. That's just me. I don't condemn anyone else, but you know, I remember dating women. Think about this. I call it like non-sports watching game. I remember meeting women, and like on a first date, a woman would say, "You're not going to spend Sundays watching TV. Like if we date, are you?" And I'm like, "No." I said, "I can't stand sports." She's like, "I love you." So I can't tell you how many women in my life just reacted so positively to the fact that I don't watch professional sports.
Makes sense.
Now, I tell you what I love. I love high school football. Man, that is just pure fun, you know, top level AAA high school football down here in Texas. Oh, man, that's some serious stuff.
Yeah.
Some serious stuff and a lot of passion, a lot of going for it. You know, no one's got,
there's a lot of
marketing. There's no marketing deals on the table, you know.
There's a lot of good high school football movies out there. Just really good movies.
Yeah. If you want to see a funny, absolutely hysterical college football, what is it, Blue State? I think it is.
Yeah.
And, I just roar every time I see that. You know, that shenanigans of the team, and it's just a big farce. You know, it's really a lot of fun. It's a good fun movie. You know, get you some nachos and a couple of beers, and just sit back and enjoy. A lot of good fun there.
Right.
You guys are still in sports. I missed a few things, I think, but it was Bill Maher, of all people, who woke me up to that. He said that people who watch sports obsessively they're no different than a cat. You know, you're just watching the little dot move around on a screen, like a bunch of 19-year-old kids, you know, like you don't even know them. Like, why would you watch it? You know?
Yeah.
It woke me up. And I'm a fan of the Detroit Lions too. If you're a fan of them your whole life, you'll probably end up not liking sports so much anyways. But good talk Bill Maher had. Pretty funny.
Now, how many of you are in? I'm sorry, I was going to ask, how many of you are into watching non-traditional sports, non-mainstream sports like downhill skiing, Formula One, Grand Prix motorcycle racing, rugby?
Motorcycles for me, MotoGP.
Yeah, the Isle of Man PT. Yeah.
Yes, Isle of Man, sure.
The Isle of Man is insane.
It is. It's crazy to watch. Couldn't imagine doing it myself, but
probably the most exciting motorsport race
so I think
out there.
That's rugby.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I played rugby, so I love watching rugby. And my team's the All Blacks. I love the New Zealand All Blacks when they get out there and do the haka before the games. Man, that's awesome.
Wait. What's the name of that? What's the name of that team?
The New Zealand All Blacks.
New Zealand,
They're
right?
probably right. They're one of the
Spell
most
that.
famous, most New Zealand All Blacks. They wear an all black uniform.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wasn't. I had no idea.
No
I was looking at it from another perspective. Yeah, I was thinking okay, what
and they're from New Zealand.
Is that like the Jamaican bobsled team or something? I don't know.
No, these guys are like world class, international, world champion rugby team. And they're famous. And one of the things they're known for, they have the Maori war dance, the haka, okay? And they get out before the game and the whole team's out there, and the symbolism, I'm going to rip your heart out and eat it. I'm going to, dismember you. And it's awesome to watch. And they get out there and they do the haka. And, rugby's an intense game anyway. So, and now that I'm over 60, I can be an all pink. If you're over 60 playing, you get to wear pink shorts, which means you can't be hammered to the ground. You can't be tackled.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. Honest engine. You're over 60, you get a little.
That would take the.
You don't get hammered.
That would take the danger out of it. I think that would be. I don't know. That's playing it too safe, literally.
So does it turn into like two-hand touch?
Something like that. I don't know. I just know that you're not going to find yourself at the bottom of a mall, unless by accident.
Right.
You're not going to get up with your head on backwards. That's all you care about.
Yeah.
No, playing rugby. I played in Dallas and played for Old Hat and Texas X's and Harlequin. And I played league and then I played old boy league. And old boy league is fun. You had to be over 30 to be on the team. But we ended up playing college teams and like SMU and the different colleges. And a lot of bars have teams, and it's just a lot of fun. You'll go out there and just hammer the, living, what out of each other. And then after the game, you all go to the bar and have choir practice together. And there were only a handful of bars that would let us in.
That sounds like roller derby.
Well, I mean, you're out there. It's a tough game. It's a tough game. Guys get hurt. And, it's just, especially like in Texas, we don't have lush turf to play on. It's like concrete with a little bit of grass and dirt spread on it. So you get slammed to the ground. It hurts. It's hard. And you'd be there and guys would be like, ice packs and black eyes and whatever, and sitting there, all the teams mixed and drinking and singing, having choir practice, which is singing the old rugby songs. And
it's funny. That's like a badge of honor, though, right? I mean, when you think about it, having the bruises, the black eyes, and all that kind of stuff,
No, the badge of honor was actually being able to walk out of the bar after choir practice.
Being able to walk out of the bar.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I did it. I made
it. Oh my God.
I mean, are there any hockey players that actually have their real teeth in the front?
Maybe now because they got better gear, but old school, man. If your kid played hockey, you weren't going to invest in orthodontics.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You know, that was a losing battle.
Right. Yeah, someone just mentioned cricket. That is a game that I have no idea. I look at that and I go, I don't know. I just feel like it's so alien. I'm just so used to.
And it goes on sports. For days.
I don't get. Crazy. We have the Philadelphia Cricket Club here, and I'm like, what the?
It's too many rules.
Is it?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Because like you hit this, you get a point. You hit that, you get a point. You hit this, but then you hit that, you lose your points. It's a complicated mess of rules.
And it goes on for days. Oh.
Cricket reminds me of like backgammon. Like, why would you ever want to play backgammon? I don't get it. What is your favorite board game? Do you have a favorite board game?
Monopoly.
Spin the bottle.
That's because I always steal from the bank when no one's looking.
That's a trick.
Yeah.
That's a trick.
Funny story. My friend was at the bank, and we were sitting next to each other, and we're across the other people, so he just constantly slipped me 500s. So I just started paying for everything with 500s, and no one caught on for like 30 minutes.
Talk about games that can go on forever, John. Monopoly. That some last about a week.
Yeah.
No, I was never.
I do like Monopoly.
Yeah.
It's where you learn how to money launder.
Yeah, right. My
Monopoly,
favorite board
really?
game is Othello. That's my favorite.
Never heard of it.
And Stratego. Othello and Stratego. I played those a lot when I was a kid.
I think it'd have to be marbles for me, which it's not like it's not the shoot marbles. It was an actual board game, and I don't know if my family created it or what, but my grandpa had designs for it, and he would drill the holes a piece of plywood, and you just play with I think it was 4 marbles a piece and a piece of die. That was it.
Interesting.
Remember Battleship?
Mm-hmm.
That was a great game.
And Rock'em Sock'em Robots.
No doubt.
Okay, this is a group of guys. Do any of us like Risk?
I blitzkrieg Risk. And I usually end up winning by just blitzkrieging.
You know, Risk is such a has such a cult following. I mean, there's like meetup groups on meetup.com. Risk, like, and they meet once a week. Like most meetup groups meet like once a month. These guys are like meeting once a week, and they're insane about it. What game do you think has the most insane following?
Dungeons, probably.
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons, maybe.
League of Legends. Those are video games more, right? Well, Dungeons and Dragons, that's the board game too, right?
Yeah.
I think there's 2 versions of it.
I guess we have to define like pre-internet and post-internet.
Yeah.
Well, because I would say D&D got a lot of its cult following more recently too. It's really grown in popularity despite the internet. I guess not in despite of, because people can play D&D from far distance to each other, just talking over the phone.
Yeah.
Same
what
with
about casinos? Oh, I'm sorry.
Same with Warhammer. I noticed that's kind of getting an uptick.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
World of Warcraft.
I have a question for
you.
you.
Ever
Do
see
you
that
think
South
video
Park episode?
games?
Go ahead, George. Yeah.
Do you think video games took the place of board games?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
I remember
Yes.
in 1976, I had a video game called Pong. So, and it was two controllers that went up and down. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was basically just like a ping pong thing, and you hooked it up to your television, and that was it. But in my closet, in my bedroom, I had stacks of boxes of board games.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, Pong was so popular. There were Pong like tables in bars, and you could sit at the table, drink, and play Pong. And a lot of bars had the electronic game. What would you call machines?
The arcade
machines.
Yeah, arcade machines. Yeah.
I would argue that the board game versus video game thing was more on a household basis. For instance, I played video games growing up. That was just what we did in our house. But for my wife, it was board games. And they still have stacks and stacks of them. And that's what they want to do when they get together.
Yeah.
So,
now, did your wife have any brothers or anything?
She has one brother. And they were homeschooled. So that probably also played into it, too.
Yeah, I was going to say women, maybe early on, I think it's changed, weren't into the electronic games the way guys were. If you look at like the games that came out, like what was it, PlayStation and the early stuff you played on the TV, it had the cartridges and everything. You know, it was all really guy-orientated games for the most part. And
did you notice that there were board game families and then there were card playing families? Like I had some friends where we never played any board games. It was always like one of like 10 different card games. And I remember I became friends with this one guy, and it was like a Friday night. And I said, hey, what do you want to do? You know, we were going to go downtown or do something, whatever. And this was before we had our licenses and before we were driving. And I remember my parents dropped me off at his house, and I thought we were going to go out and do something. And everyone that they knew came over the house, sat around a table, and I learned how to play canasta. Did you ever hear of that game?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you how you play it, but I think so.
Yeah. There were card playing families who had the that card table. You know, with
the felt and the green felt, kind of like a poker table.
Yep.
Some people just used a billiards table and just dual purposed it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what was funny for me, I had appointed aunts and uncles. My father's really good friends would be appointed uncle, and their wives would become my aunt. And I had aunt and uncle, and they were big time gamblers going to Vegas. And I mean, like the comp level VIP treatment kind of people. And I would love I was a little kid, and my Aunt Pat would teach me how to do action numbers and roulette and how to bet blackjack. And so here I am, 12 years old, learning how to do action numbers and play roulette. how to bet blackjack and play blackjack and poker and Texas Hold'em and all this stuff like that. And I've won some money gambling. I've been to some casinos here and there, and that's a lot of fun. But you know, kind of.
I feel like I learned most of that stuff from Boy Scouts, just being out on camping trips, and that was a pack of cards, and so that was what we did.
And have you guys been to casinos?
No.
Where did Daniel? Where did you go? Which one?
Which casinos?
Or city? You know.
So I've been to casinos in Las Vegas. I thought it, and gambling it doesn't interest me at all. So I've never even tried a slot. Honest. Gotten scratch cards for Christmas before in my stocking. It's about it.
All right, gentlemen. We have to wrap it up tonight. Tomorrow's a work day for me, starting very early. But this was fun tonight, and
enjoyed it, George. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's do a quick little round robin. For me, my favorite part of the night was talking about board games. I thought that was kind of fun. How about you, John?
Yeah, I like that too. That was, the whole conversation's been really good.
Mm-hmm. I would say from the history part of it that we touched on earlier.
For me, it's a mix. I'm on the fence between the history or the board games.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you guys have a great night, and everyone that's in the chat, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. We made it through another talk radio night, and it's kind of like a Forrest Gump thing. What did he say? Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So that's what talk radio night is for us. All right, gentlemen. Thank you. Have a great night. See you soon.
All right. Take care, George.
Take care.